So tip number one for finding success in life and after is find purpose. Okay? Now, what is purpose, right? And before I even get to a definition of purpose, right? The definition of purpose, keep in mind that this first step here is the first step and it's the most important step, right? It's the most important step because it becomes the guide for the rest of the other stuff, and it sets the playground for everything else to work, right? Find purpose. Most important, first step here, all right? Now, purpose can be defined as the reason for which something exists, is done, or is created, okay? So essentially what it does is it provides the why behind your actions, okay? Now, we're going to go over about 4 or 5 different areas. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. About 5 different areas, my bad. 5 different areas, okay? So the first area, basically, this is why this is the most important step here, why it's the first step here, right? Your purpose fuels your passion. It also guides your decisions. It helps you in self-assessment. It sets the landscape for you to endure. And it leads to a more fulfilling life for you and others. In other words, there's a lasting impact. So let's start with the first one. Your purpose fuels your passion, okay? Purpose and passion are often interchanged, right? But they really shouldn't be. They're somewhat similar concepts, but they're not exactly the same, right? So what I propose is that you arrive at purpose through your intellect, right? And you arrive at that passion, you gain that passion through your heart, through your feelings, which means, if anything, in the proper order, your purpose should fuel your passion, right? You should, because again, let's just take it back to the SCAL method a little bit. Your mind trains your heart, right? Your mind, how you think, basically, is how you frame things that happen, things that you feel, and that's how you kind of proceed, and that's how you build, that's how you grow, right? So in this instance here, I'm using that same principle and applying it here to purpose. You know, you get to your purpose through your intellect, and you use that to fuel your passion, to fuel how you feel, to basically dictate how you feel about certain things and doing certain things. Purpose is funny because it tends to lead to discipline. Again, it's an intellectual thing. And that's when you keep on trucking, when you have a little bit less passion. Or in other words, discipline is what happens when you keep going when you don't feel like it. See, if your passion fueled your let's just say it was the other way around, that your passion fuels your purpose, right? Let's just say that's true. Then on times when you're a little less passionate, does that mean you have a little less purpose? So it can't work that way. No one would get anything done if it was just based on how we feel. it just doesn't work that way. So your purpose fuels your passion, because again, over time, your passion can wane. Your passion can come and go. You feel like doing this, and one day you're really excited about that the next day, and then you don't care about it at all the following. But your purpose is something that's solid. That's locked in. You know, that's where truth resides as well. But that's another thing, right? So it's just like your purpose becomes your sturdy guide, okay? And I have this little analogy here, right? So your passion is like a campfire at night, right? It's warm and it lights up the immediate area, right? But then eventually that fire has to go out. You can fuel with as many things as you want, but at some point in time, it starts to diminish a little bit. Once that fire initially goes out, usually you're left with no light, but you are, in this instance, through the moon. The moon is your purpose. It offers just enough light to light up the surrounding area, and is high enough that it can be your guide. And it allows you to get to another spot where you can light another fire. That's the way I look at passion and purpose. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with passion. Actually, I'm saying the opposite, because they're both needed in order to drive forward to having a successful life and after. But passion is not an absolute requirement either. You see, because purpose gives the meaning, gives life meaning. It gives you meaning. It gives you a direction. It pushes us to fulfill certain things with greater enthusiasm. So purpose fuels your passion. Yet again, it pushes us to doing things with more gusto, right? It forces us to relentlessly follow a particular path to the very end, no matter what, through pain and failure, through sadness and embarrassment, and at times, in spite of how we feel. Purpose is what keeps us going when it doesn't look even close to being achieved. This is why I say the most important factor for achieving success in life is purpose. Because when you live a life full of purpose, you become virtually unstoppable. No one can touch you. And trust and believe others will test you. You want that though, right? Because that becomes a kind of a litmus test by itself. What those challenges do when others come to test you, what that does is separates the people who are just talking about it from the people who are actually actively living it. And I know that sometimes kind of sets people off a little bit, where it's just like, well, I don't know. I don't know too many people actually think that they could achieve this success without any resistance. But maybe there are people out there like that. But the thing is, you want that resistance, though. It builds character. Which is the second tip for success. Build character. But it becomes a litmus test in the sense that, like I said, it separates the people who are talking about it from the people who are actually living it. But there's also like a little caveat there. When you're on your path to achieving success, a lot of people aren't going to get it. They're not going to understand it. The world definitely doesn't understand it. But there's going to be some close people that aren't going to get it either. They won't. And that, and that kind of hurts a little bit. But you keep going. Because there is so much on the other side of all of those struggles. And it's like some people will just never get it. They won't get it and they won't get you. That's okay. Just keep going. So just I'll just reiterate one point about purpose and passion, right? Again, it has to, the way it has to go is your purpose has to fuel and drive your passion. Because listen, if your passion is the thing that's driving this car here, it's going to drive you right off a cliff. And that's what I found led me to my first bout of depression. It was like, again, I was achieving everybody else's success. I was passionate about it. I was going where I felt I needed to go. And I was doing the things that felt right, because I'm just, and just high tea all day. But it wasn't actually success. I was accomplishing a lot, but I wasn't very successful. I've seen more people live a life of purpose out of duty than out of passion. Now, I don't know if that's a great thing, but I've seen a lot more people feel dutifully obligated to do the right thing, right? And it wasn't anything that they were super overly excited about either. But they did it because this is their purpose. They lined up with their purpose, so that allowed them to carry through the times where they definitely didn't feel like it. So again, that's what that discipline is. And I'm going to eventually later on dig into this idea of so I see purpose in general split into two, whereas there's divine purpose, and that's the same for everyone, right? And then there's personal purpose. And what I'm saying is find both. Find both and match them up. And that leads to a successful life and after, right? That's one of the things, though, right? Purpose guides your decisions. It's critical in your decision making, right? So what I want you to do is put on your purpose glasses now. I got my purpose glasses on. Whatever. Put on, so basically, I want you to look at all the decisions that lay before you. Look at all of the infinite paths that you can take here at any given point in time, and look at it through the lens of your purpose. Your purpose becomes your guide in that instance, because you could make a whole bunch of choices at one point in time, but there's only one or a couple or whatever that'll lead you to getting closer towards achieving what you're here to achieve, right? Lining up with your purpose. So it provides you a target and a setup in which you can measure and evaluate choices and decisions, right? You have, and let me just go over that a little bit. Choices and decisions, they are not the same thing. Let's just say I have 3 crayons, and I don't know why I'm thinking crayons, because I was just helping boys with school. Anyway, let's just say you have 3 crayons, and you have a red, you have a blue, and you have a green. If I were to choose one, I'm gonna pick the red one, right? Color with it. But out of that choice, I can always just put that red down and pick up the blue, and then I can just always put the blue down and pick up the green. That's a choice. That's when you choose something. But when you decide something, you are permanently eliminating the other options. So if I'm going to decide on a job to take at this current point in time, I'm going to take job A or job B. I can't just choose one and then all of a sudden I'm going to jump to job B in a couple months. And I mean, sometimes it might work out like that, but the chances are it doesn't quite work out that way. So it's like, to make a choice is just to pick one. To make a decision is to actually evaluate what options that you have, grab that one, and everything else has to go. Okay? So your purpose guides your decisions. It guides your choices, but it guides your decisions, meaning you're going to pick a particular path to go down that's going to lead you closer towards your purpose, closer towards realizing your purpose, and everything else has to go, right? But there are also times where you could just pick one and then go on, but utilizing your purpose to kind of set the ground for you to be able to just pick one, right? Let's just say you have 10 choices. All right, well, your purpose will kind of slim that down to 5, right? And then ultimately, if you want to make a decision, you want to pick one. So it provides you that target. It provides you that setup for you to proceed, to move forward, and to make that choice and or decision, okay? And making this decision, this is the question that you have to ask yourself. Does making this decision actually get you closer to your target? Or does it align with your purpose? Does it align with your reason for being? And if yes, then you make that decision. And if no, then, well, that's the one that gets eliminated, right? So your purpose becomes your guide there. It also helps you stay focused and avoid the common pitfall of impulsive decision making, which too many of us do now, right? All the while limiting the noise of the other options that don't line up with your overall purpose. Let's go back to this. Let's say you have 10 choices. 10 choices. Bang, 10 of them. Your purpose will knock down 5 of them. So now you have 5 choices, right? Your purpose can even further limit how much noise you hear from the other 4 choices, because you're going to have to make a decision on one, right? So what your purpose does is it eliminates all the stuff that doesn't line up with it, right? So it's just like, okay, cool. If I want to, I'll give you an example. If I want to be a great singer one day, which I can't sing at all. So let's just say I'm starting from this point right now where I have no singing ability at all whatsoever. Let's just say I want to become a singer. So I'm going to start making decisions that's going to line me up to, so I have to take voice lessons. I'll have to dedicate a lot of time, have to find the songs to sing, all that stuff. And then I'll have to dedicate time to actually practicing it. So then I will have to set aside time. I have to put it in my calendar. All of these things that I have to do, those are all decisions I have to make. If I'm going to do this, I'm not going to become a singer. Well, here's where I'm starting. My purpose is to become a singer. I have to line everything up with that now. What I'm not going to do is, if my desire is to become a singer, is I'm just going to go, I'm going to go become a basketball player. It has nothing to do with it. Nothing to do with it at all. If I'm legitimately going to become a singer, my purpose is to sing, then I need to line up everything, all the choices and all the decisions I make along that path to becoming a singer. So practicing basketball isn't going to help me, right? So in that way, your purpose guides your decisions. It eliminates noise around the decision-making process. It gives you the guide and a target, and you go from there. It also helps in self-assessment, right? Whenever you go through that process of self-reflecting, right, an evaluation process, which hopefully you do, right, and maybe that should have been like a quasi side tip, but you always have to go through that process of self-reflection and evaluation. You always have to figure out what you're thinking, why you're thinking it, how you're feeling it, why you're feeling it, what you're feeling, right? Like all that stuff. You have to figure that out. You have to have a good grip on that, right? Your purpose helps in kind of measuring what it is and where you're going, right? So when we go through that process, we're looking at our skills, opportunities, and resources, our biblical talents, while also examining our experiences, emotions, strengths, and areas for growth. As an aside, we're also kind of examining our values, what we value, what we hold dear. In that critical analysis, so basically what I just explained just up to this point was you got to critically think about this stuff, right? And I did a whole episode or a whole segment of episode, probably like a whole hour on just talking about critical thinking and why it's important. Here it shows up again, but this time you're using your purpose to guide your critical thinking, right? So in that critical analysis, we adjust as needed to line up with our purpose. Our purpose is our guide, but is also our measuring stick. Your purpose helps you determine where you stand. Then, again, the next part of the process, then you make the decisions from there. It also, your purpose sets the landscape for you to endure. Well, this is the long game we're playing here, right? So it sets you up, your purpose sets the environment for you to endure, right? And we're looking at success like long term. So if we're talking about success in life, we're talking long term here. If we're talking about the afterlife, we're talking about long term here, right? So no matter what, in this life, you're going to run into hardships. Some hardships are going to be more difficult than others, but the process of moving on is the same. The components that are required that you need to have in your belly, they're the same, right? So whether the hardship is excruciatingly difficult or whether it's easy to deal with, it would behoove you to focus on your purpose. Because by focusing on your purpose, you will find that you are more resilient. It's harder to knock you off course. It's harder to knock you down. And even if you do get down, it's hard to stay down there. You won't stay down, right? So you could take on these hardships and have more in the tank to persevere, right? Worded differently, your purpose also fuels your endurance. It's a strange thing, but your purpose creates a sense of hope in you, right? When you're aiming at something, when you have that target, it does create a little bit of hope. And hope is a powerful, powerful thing to have. Hope in tomorrow, hope in this, hope in that, whatever it may be. But it's a powerful, powerful thing to have, especially if you utilize it properly, right? Hope is a critical component of endurance in that it allows you to face those hardships, smile, and say, bring it on. Purpose also leads to a more fulfilling life for you and for others. In other words, it has a lasting impact there. And this is really important too, right? Purpose provides the meaning to your actions. It does this while giving you a sense of fulfillment from providing value to the world in your way, right? This is how we create a lasting impact. One who has purpose and lives a life according to purpose ultimately, almost always, creates a lasting impact that others feel and benefit from. Not only does it lead to a more fulfilling life, but it typically leads to a longer, healthier life. And there's studies to show that. Of course, I had to bring some studies in. There's studies to show that people, now I think there were psychological studies, right? The people who live life according to a particular purpose tend to live healthier and longer lives. So it leads to a more fulfilling and healthy life. Maybe I should have just captioned it that way. But this is mainly how you achieve success in life, but also after. The lasting impact that you leave once you punch your ticket is directly derived from you living out your purpose. And that's a major point there. Anybody I've seen truly live a successful life, have a successful life, they created that lasting impact for others as well. Hence the reason why the second tip for a successful life and after is build good character. Now that we have that all the way, and we understand why it's important for us to start off with purpose, finding your purpose, building up that purpose, right? I alluded to it earlier, where there's this difference between personal purpose and divine purpose, right? Because when you get to the divine purpose is simply, it's the same for all of us, right? Our divine purpose, our reason for being is to love God with all our heart, mind, and soul, and to love our neighbor as ourselves. That's it, right? But the thing is, our personal purpose, and that's not to say that it's the opposite of what God's purpose is, but there's different skills and abilities that we have. There's different gifts that have been given to us to work with, to build with, to grow things with, right? There's different ways that we can achieve that divine purpose. So our personal purpose, when lined up with our divine purpose, ultimately leads to a successful life and after. Now you see where I say and after, right? And I'll give you again a little example. So I'm gifted at, let's just go back to the singing example again. I'm gifted at singing. Again, I'm clearly not, But let's just say I'm gifted at singing. You know what? Better yet, I used to paint back in the day. I'm pretty good at it. I'm a gifted painter. Let's just say that. Let's bring it closer to home, right? So let's just say I'm a gifted painter. So I have this skill, and I can see it. I can see the picture. I can see what I'm painting. I can see. I know what brushes. I know the tools well. I know the paints well. I know this. So I have the skills. I have this gift to be able to see it and pull it all together. So then you could say like, hey, well, I guess my purpose is to paint. Let's just say my purpose is to be a painter, to be a world-renowned painter, maybe, right? I'm going to line up all of my decisions based on that purpose of being a painter. So I'm going to keep taking classes. I'm going to keep painting, keep practicing, keep learning, keep observing, keep all of that stuff, right? What that becomes is my personal purpose, right? My personal purpose is to be this great painter. Now, how does that line up with my divine purpose, right? To love God with all my mind, body, soul, all that fun stuff, so mind, heart, soul, right? Like how does that line up, right? Because then it's just like, well, if I paint these paintings and I paint them to the glory of God, and then I'm trying to edify the kingdom a little bit, bring art form to the kingdom in a way that maybe hasn't been done before. It's like I read this book a long time ago, Art for God's Sake, and it was a very enlightening book, right? Where you could do art for God, but also to build up the kingdom. It's like, because there really is no direct value to any art, right? But there's still something that you could get from it. There's messages that you can convey through it. All this fun stuff. Remember, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So it's just like one of those things where you could line up. If I'm a painter, I can line up my personal purpose of becoming this, great painter with my divine purpose, with, building the kingdom and loving God and loving my neighbor. And I can do that at the same time. And that would lead me to have a successful life. So let's bring it back a little bit more, right? This is why, and again, this is my attempt at looking for an objective definition of success. An objective definition of success requires an objective purpose combined with a subjective purpose, right? And that's really what I'm saying. You have your subjective personal purpose, and you have your objective divine purpose. You combine those, you match those up, and that leads to an objectively successful life, or the beginnings of it. Okay? So there you have it. Tip number 1, find your purpose. Okay?